The West Hawaii Civic Center in Kona was packed for another round of discussion on regulating aquarium fish collecting in Hawaii County. A number of bills and presentations about the controversial fishery were on the Hawaii County Council's Agriculture, Water, and Energy Sustainability agenda Tuesday. Returning from last year, Bill 318 creates new rules for the protection of marine life that is harvested with the intent to sell for aquarium use. Also, Bill 24, which would regulate the aquarium fishery by issuing mandatory licenses. Testifiers for and against mostly went along the lines of who supports or opposes the industry itself. Tina Owens of the Lost Fish Coalition was one of the first to speak in Kona.
Is strictly an attempt to drive West Hawaii people out of business, and why you should be taking our people and putting them out of business for a group of people from Maui, I do not understand. You should be looking after us and not after the people from Maui. So I oppose both of these bills very vigorously, and I hope that you will listen to all of the testimony that comes about these exact bills. And if you're just going to make a decision on this bill as to people just saying, I don't like the industry, that's not what these bills are. If you made a bill that said we're going to do away with the industry because we don't like it, then talking about liking or not liking is appropriate.
So I'm here really against the bills because I feel as a taxpayer of this county that it is a waste of this council's time and money to be going after bills.
I'm very shocked to hear the aquarium fishers speak as they are, as if they have the privilege to take what they want and not give back to the aina, that which sustains you.
Many detrimental threats to our reefs right now from pollution, rainwater runoff, injection wells, disposal pits right here next door, and as well as overfishing, very detrimental practices, gill nets, spearfishing on scuba. This is not a priority, and I think that we've already got it handled with the state regulations, and this is maybe not something the county should deal with. So I also oppose Bill 24.
Bill 318 is going to, if passed, would put us out of business, plain and simple. I wonder why our opponents are not addressing the merits of this bill. Why is everyone talking about whether they, the fact they don't like aquarium collectors? No one has really offered any evidence to say why this bill would be good. The simple facts are 318, if passed, will harm and kill fish. The methods that we use have been tested and developed over 40, 50 years. They are part of federal guidelines that we are required to follow for the humane treatment of animals. And when people come up and say that they have better ideas of how to ship fish and they've never shipped them and this makes it better for them, I just question.
I went and testified before the legislature on Bill 873 last week, and I can tell you how it works in Oahu. The fishermen from Oahu come to the meetings. They flood it. They live there. And so only a few of us from the Big Island were able to fly over and testify. So it looked like a large majority of people were against banning tropical fish collection. And there were a small number of us who were saying, this is not good for the Big Island. I think that you need to realize that that the Big Island is very unlikely to get protection from the legislature for our fish. We are always going to be out-lobbied on Oahu by the people who want to come over here and take our fish.
Puna Council member Gregor Iligan requested a presentation from the State Department of Land and Natural Resources on the sustainability of the aquarium life.
What I want to show you is what we know about the abundance, the sustainability of that number one targeted species, the yellow tang. Okay, so let me explain what I'm presenting here. We have three types of areas that we look in. We have what we call existing MPAs. So these are areas that have been around for a long time before we put those FRAs or the fish replenishment areas in effect. So Kealakekua Bay, no-take area. They average about 30 years of protection. So this blue line represents the abundance of yellow tang in the MPAs from, you can't see it very well here, from 1999 up all the way to the right to 2014. That's the most recent data. Okay? And that's on that left scale, that's the density, how many fish per 100 meters squared. So you can see that these areas now were protected long before the FRAs were established, and they go up and down, but they've been relatively stable. The areas that became the FRAs, at one point they were open back on the left of that line back in before 2000. They were low, and they've increased, and now they're pretty much tracking very similarly, a little bit lower than the long-time protected areas. So they've only been in effect 15 years. The MPAs have been in 30 years. So it looks like it's going to take a little more time for them, hopefully, to match that right on. Now, the open areas, the source of all the interest, is represented by the green line. Okay, it was quite similar to begin with, and because the MPA, the FRAs were protected, their numbers have increased, and this is the trend through time. It's been going up and down and so forth. Now, we can look at the change through time. So if I compare the abundances in 99 and 2000 and compare them with 2013 and 2014, what we see, the MPAs have increased somewhat. Actually, they've increased 13% in the density of yellow tang over this 15-year period. It's a statistically significant increase. The FRAs increased dramatically because they were open at one point, and they've gone up 61%. And even the open areas now have increased much less, but they're 10%. Now, somebody might say, well, look at the open areas are low, and they're lower than the MPAs, and they're lower than the FRAs. That means something as bad is happening. Well, no, because what that means is that the open areas are the areas open to fishing. The other areas are no-take areas. This is not surprising. This is the way of the world. You protect an area, say, don't come in, don't take anything, give it enough time, there'll be more than the areas where you're allowing take. It doesn't mean that take is excessive or anything of that sort. Okay, so the other information we have is the young of the year, the babies, the keiki that come in. And these are obviously what makes for future fish. And those bars represent each year's mean number of keiki. And you can see that some years are better than others. And like if you look at that first one on the left, it goes up. And then if you look at the densities in the areas, you can see they go up afterwards. And then same with the one in the middle. And then this last year, 2014, was the highest levels of recruitment we've had in 15 years in West Hawaii. So we actually anticipate all of those areas actually increasing in 2015 because of all those babies that are out there as they grow bigger. Now we can estimate populations because we have a density, and we say, well, okay, how much reef area is there in the open areas and the closed areas and so forth. And what we find is back in 99, 2000, for yellow tang populations in this mid-depth range, 30 to 60 feet on the reef out there, we've got 2.2 million yellow tang. And now that number has increased to, it's doubled, 4.8 million fish. And so that's an increase of 2.5 million fish over this period of protection. This is the whole coast, taking everything to an account. And that's an increase quite substantial of 111% for yellow tang, okay?
Kohala Councilwoman Margaret Willey requested to hear from Teresa Talecki, the Director of Wildlife for the Humane Society International.
I've worked on wildlife trade issues related to the pet trade in wild animals, taken from the wild, going into the pet trade, all kinds of different animals, from birds to reptiles to amphibians and even fish. The deaths of these fish in home aquarium are not the fault of the people taking care of them, but actually the fault of everything that's happened cumulatively to the animals along the entire supply chain. If you can clean up the supply chain and make it more humane for the animals, then obviously fewer animals are going to have to be collected because more of them will survive to fulfill the market demand, if you follow me.
Marine biologist Dr. Catherine Music, the director of Kula Vai, a Kauai-based environmental education and research foundation.
The second is to explain how important and beautiful corals are. We've been talking about fish all afternoon, so thank you for still being here. So corals are very important and beautiful, and then we're going to talk about the collapse of the corals worldwide, and then what are we going to do about it?
Council members then discussed Bill 318 for aquarium life treatment.
On Bill 318, let me say a key difference here, or key point in this, is that we are not just specifying what the percentage of mortality should or shouldn't be, but we're actually specifying the ways that they should accomplish that. And whereas I think that we have a important concern to conserve and protect the natural resources, and that is the overall goal of this bill, I am going to withdraw this bill and move on to the and not proceed with this one.
Okay, and that's okay with me. So Bill 318 is now withdrawn. So
the council also discussed Bill 24, establishing licensing for aquarium collectors.
By the county going through and basically educating itself, and I think that whatever happens, just having this session and having this amount of knowledge, I think for us, where our life is so much of our tourism, so much of our economy, so much of our environmental welfare and our socio-cultural welfare is dependent on the significant and health of the reef, that we need to take that coolly on it.
No, it's important. We have livelihoods here on all of you, the divers, the fishermen. Yeah? But I really wanted to say thank you very much for coming and sharing with me all your know and your expertise.
But what I see here today was a real conflict between society as it is today as compared to many years ago. But we have to try to balance it out, whether it is looking again at the list, that white list, and looking at what we as subsistence practitioners value now, regardless of what's depleted. That is the difficult thing that we need to do. And I think as opposed to having an ordinance that is black and white, no or yes or no, I think we need to be very prudent. And as Margaret say, find a neutral or a common ground.
Council members, I would think that we should wait until we see what happens at the state level, and then we can come back and then look over what we can do. But I would suggest, as you mentioned, recess, and then wait until what happens with the state legislature. Thank you.
You have a lot of things inside here: licensing, enforcement, terms of license, renewals of license, conditions of license, enforcement and inspection, penalty, citation. This is everything the state does. So I have a real big concern with this and the preemption that the state will, they oversee this currently. They have a very good process going. I mean, I could look at all these papers, Hawaii Administrative Rules, Title 13, Subtitle 4, Fisheries, Marine Fisheries Management Areas, Chapter 60.4, Bill for an Act, Act 306, relating to the West Hawaii Regional Fishery Management. It goes on and on.
To me, it's got to be done by the state, if anything. Moreover, the state constitution reserves the protection of marine resources to the state of Hawaii. We're without any power to do what's being done here. So, we're really picking on the wrong people here. I mean, we have to, all get together and try to protect our marine resources, but to just single out the fish collectors, I think that's very unfair. And that's just my thoughts on this. Thank you.
Like on the agriculture and the fire ant, and when I worked on that back in 2008, and we came up with a county that we needed to do something, and everyone said, no, look, this is for the state. Why are we doing this? And it was always, no, this is a state issue. And now look where we are. So that's the sense from which I come from. And I think if someone wants to challenge and say we don't, but if we were to at least say we're making a statement if we pass this, and it's making a statement to the state, and maybe if in the end we can't work it out in terms of preemption, maybe we ultimately do a resolution.
This bill wasn't vetted through our LRB or our Corporation Council. And there's an issue with that. You know, it's hard to bring it up before the council and we vet it through us, and then we go back and vet it through the appropriate departments. I have a big issue with that.
You doing this, Councilmember Willie, you have taken a lot of our time. A lot of these people could have invested their time doing something else, either more productive in their community or spending time with their family. So I just want to say, if you could save us some time, and I will do the same, is vet this out first and figure out if legally we could really do it. But bringing everybody over here and spending the whole day here, I must say, we can't get that time back. So